You guys are all familiar with the main series Pokemon games and series of events. We've all been exposed to the repeated formula of Pokemon games where you begin with a starter, battle the 8 gyms, defeat the evil team, and catch legendary Pokemon. There's a common consensus that Pokemon is too repetitive, boring, or lacking innovation, but it wasn't always like this. All the way back in 2003, Pokemon decided to experiment with their IP and bring Pokemon to the GameCube. Instead of Game Freak, Genius Sorority were in charge and produced Pokemon Colosseum. I'll be bringing you guys along the story of Pokemon Colosseum, but before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as only 2% of my viewers are subscribed, and it would mean a lot if you click that red button. With that out of the way, let's begin. The game begins with some exposition. I'm shown a barren desert, and in the desert there's a weird structure nestled in the rocks. Inside the structure there's a bunch of bald men. That sentence was a lot more funnier than I thought. The building blows up, by the way, and we come to find out that the player character is the one that blew up the place. Imagine Red just blowing up Viridian City Gym. The player character, which I'll refer to as myself from now on, walks in and takes this cool looking device, not before putting his hand on it and smiling in the most sinister way possible. I run off of my Umbreon and Espeon in this crazy looking motorcycle, and just because the first time wasn't enough, I had to blow up the place a second time for good measure. How do people know to come here? It's seemingly in the middle of the desert. And why is the bar made from a train? How did the train find itself in the middle of the desert? It's so confusing. Putting that aside, I see these two guys talking about something they had caught in the bag on their truck. As to what's inside, I'll get to that in a minute, but oh boy. My exploits seem to have been broadcasted, and it turns out that the building belonged to the evil Team Snag'em. I leave like nothing ever happened, but this pink-haired guy named Willie challenged me to a battle. A double battle. You see, all Pokemon battles in Pokemon Colosseum are double battles. Also, my starters, Espeon and Umbreon, begin at level 25 and 26, the highest level for starter Pokemon. After defeating Willie, I head to Phoenix City where I run into the two guys again, and it is later revealed that they have a person in their bag. Straight up kidnapped someone in the most inhumane way possible. A crowd begins to form to condemn the kidnappers, but these guys have the most hilarious defense ever. We are not robbers, we are kidnappers. That genuinely made me laugh a bit. I ended up freeing the girl in the bag, her name being Rui. The onlooker suggests I go visit the mayor to report this incident, and right outside his home, this terrifying man comes out and talks to me. I meet up with SK, the mayor, as Rui reports that she sees Pokemon with dark aura that seem to be really violent. The mayor doesn't believe this as much but suggests a visit to the Phoenix Stadium. Upon exiting the Phoenix Stadium, I am confronted by a few Team Snag'em members who call me a traitor. Turns out not only was I an ex-Team Snag'em member myself, but also the team's top snagger. Snagger being someone who steals Pokemon from others using the device that I previously stole in the beginning. Rui still trusts me after all of this and suggests I get some Pokeballs, which proves to be difficult as this game is set in the Ori region, a region with no wild Pokemon. We are able to buy some at the bar we were at earlier, but in order to catch Pokemon, we are going to have to steal them. Upon returning to Phoenix, I stumble upon Rui's kidnappers and their leader, the funky Mirror Bee. The colorful gentlemen leave as I battle Foley and Trudley, who are the kidnappers. It is here the main feature of Pokemon Colosseum is explained. The trainers in the Ori region use shadow Pokemon, Pokemon who have their emotions artificially shut down. Only Rui is able to spot these Pokemon, and it is my job to catch them in order to purify them. Note, for this playthrough I'm only going to be catching the Pokemon from my original playthrough. The colorful gentlemen I talked about are guarding the different exits of Phoenix City. Each of them have a different Johto starter. Now listen, I've used Typhlosion a ton, and there are multiple other opportunities for me to use Feraligatr in other games. This was the only time I could give Bayleaf some love, so I took it. I head to Pyrite City where at the police station, this gullible cop believes that this thief didn't steal anything and lets him go. There's a lot of trainers here to fight, and among them is another team member that I'm going to snag for myself. Remember, the Pokemon I snag are shadow Pokemon, so it's morally fine. I catch myself a Quagsire to add to the team. Quagsire being really good because it has the move Surf, which can hit both enemy Pokemon in double battles. Considering this is a double battle only game, that's pretty decent. Anyway, I find out the winners from the Colosseum battles in Pyrite get handed shadow Pokemon by Team Cypher, and the police are so incompetent that they can't do anything about it. The guy I met at Phoenix seems to be the leader, and Mirror B seems to be an admin. Turns out Mirror B kidnapped Duking's Plusle, Duking being the guy that runs the Colosseum, and now his spirit is broken and can't tackle the Shadow Pokemon issue himself. His right-hand man, however, seems set on fixing the Shadow Pokemon issue. He goes ahead and steals a gear which causes the Colosseum to shut down and dumps it in the construction lot. He uses this distraction to seemingly infiltrate the Team Cypher headquarters in Pyrite. Rui and I go collect the gear from the construction lot and return it so that the Colosseum can have its power back up again. Duking suggests that I go challenge the Colosseum. I go ahead and do just as Duking said and enter the Colosseum. It's a gauntlet of battles, and with Espeon, Umbreon, and Quagsire, I'm able to breeze through it, resulting in myself winning the Colosseum challenge. Real quick, about nicknames, I'll give everyone nicknames as soon as I get to purify my Shadow Pokemon, as that's when Shadow Pokemon can get nicknamed anyways. Espeon and Umbreon will also be renamed when that time comes. Since I won the Colosseum challenge, a Team Cypher member ushers me into the Team Cypher hideout to reward me with a Shadow Pokemon. I get identified immediately as the guy giving Mirror B trouble and am forced to defend myself in battles. I find Duking's right-hand man Silva defeated and on the ground. I tell him that Duking knows me, and suddenly Mirror B shows up on the television. He tells us that he's been using Duking's Plusle as bait to get Duking to abide by his demands. That honestly is so sad for Duking. It's essentially a hostage situation. In order to save the Plusle, I head into Pyrite Cave, defeating all of the Cypher Grunts. I also managed to add a Swablu to the team. I make it to Mirror B as he challenges me to a fight. The fight was pretty long because he just had 4 Ludicolo to stall the fight. I eventually beat him and save Duking's Plusle. I get taken to Duking's house where he just gives me the Plusle. He was so distraught having his Plusle stolen that he got pushed around, but now he wants me to keep it. That's so dumb. I get Duking's phone number, and as I try to leave Pyrite, I get stopped by a fortune teller named Fatine who tells me something bad is going up north. Rui realizes that that's where her grandfather lives, namely Agate City, as I set my sights there. I meet Rui's grandfather and his Pikachu. As I'm talking to him, he gets called on to help out as a situation is arising at the Relic Stone. I head there as well to see him get finished by a Cypher Grunt Shadow Hitmontop. I decide to help out and end up catching the Hitmontop for myself. Turns out Team Cypher wanted to catch Celebi and destroy the Relic Stone, seemingly as they are the only way for Shadow Pokemon to be purified. I head to this guy called Senilor upon Rui's grandfather's request and learn more about Celebi. I acquire a small tablet from Rui's grandmother, and as I'm about to leave, I get an email from Duking. Apparently, a place called Mount Battle is under attack by Team Cypher and one of their admins. Before I even get to that, I decide to purify all of my applicable Pokemon, which is everyone but Hitmontop. I name Swablu Subasa, Quagsire McJohn, Bayleaf, who evolves into a Meganium after purification, is named Maple, and my Status, Umbreon and Espeon are named Midna and Gemini respectively. I head to Mount Battle and take on a bunch of trainers to have the opportunity to face Cypher admin The Kim. Before battling him, my Swablu evolved into an Altaria. His Entei is pretty scary, but nothing my team could not handle. The Kim escapes, but not before dropping the F-Disc. I collect it as well as the Time Flute from Vander. I head to the mystery lab, but I have no way to head inside. Luckily, Duking emails me saying he caught some Cypher Grunts, so I head to Pyrite, go into jail, use the jail key so I could invade the cell and steal an elevator key from the sleeping Grunt. Turns out there's a secret underground base beneath the Pyrite Cypher building, the very one I invaded previously. I head down to the place which is named the Under, and whoa, forget I said underground base, this is a whole town. Immediately after I enter the town, Cypher admin Venus relays that there are spies in the town, referring to Rui and I. I poke around the Under and eventually meet this kid who happens to be a big fan of me. He realizes that I've been the one foiling Team Cypher's plan and entrusts me to deliver a power-up card to his friend Net. I oblige, but as soon as I head out, I see a cutscene of Cypher admin Venus and Cypher admin Ian talking to their leader Nascor. Ian is revealed to be the brain behind the Shadow Pokemon production. He takes his leave as Venus remains in the Under. I meet up with Net, and it turns out the kids in the Under have a secret alliance called the Kids Grid, where they are all well informed on the evil Team Cypher and who has been stopping them, which is me. They seem to be big fans, but more importantly, Net takes the power-up part to upgrade the Kids Grid. As I leave their hideout, apparently the spy has been caught. Turns out it was Silva, who made his way down here but was caught and imprisoned. I talk to Silva at the side of his prison where he slides me the art disc. This is useful as I can now travel to where Venus has been broadcasting all this while and challenge her to a battle. Her Suicune, while imposing, was easily dealt with. She ran off as I chased her to a subway where she bamboozles me and escapes. She drops the subway key though, so I take the train to the basement of the Shadow Lab. To prevent my entry, the Grunts blow up the place so I can't enter. However, they do conveniently drop the main gate key for the lab. I also find a U-disc stashed away on the side. I head back to the surface and make my way to A-Gate Village so I could purify the last shadow Pokemon on my main team, being Hitmontop. Upon purification, I gave Hitmontop the nickname Topper. I head to the Shadow Pokemon Lab and use the main gate key to enter the facility. I have to navigate this place, which involves me using the shutter switch to unlock gates, swiping a card key from a Cypher Grunt so I can progress further into the lab, and also collect 3 DNA samples from 3 different locations in the lab, which is key in helping me solve a puzzle later on. I find this room, and in it there's a machine that can decipher the DNA samples and find out which Pokemon they belong to. The Pokemon samples that I have are Quillavas, Croconaws, and Entei. I have to do this because there's a puzzle I need to solve where I need to input the 3 Pokemon whose DNA I analyze so the gate will unlock itself. Beyond it, I come face to face with the Cypher admin Ian. He's the brains behind the Shadow Pokemon production, and now I have to battle him. And I lost because his team was so much more high level than mine. I came back after grinding my team up and I was able to take down Ian and his Raikou. Ian flees as I pick up a data ROM from his desk. Ned, the kid from the under, asked me to bring any data ROMs that I find for research, and I conveniently just picked up one. I gave it to him and he finds out that it was the data of the list of shadow Pokemon. He says he needs time to recover the lost data, so for now, I head to Realgam Tower. Realgam Tower is the final relevant area in the main story, so let's head in. The cool thing about Colosseum is that it is a Pokemon game without a traditional Elite Four and League system. Instead, the evil team will serve as the final test of the game. Reminder, this game came out 7 years before Pokemon Black, which would go on to adopt the idea of the evil team being the final challenge of the game. Colosseum does have a makeshift Elite Four, that being the Cypher admins. As the player, I have challenged these guys across the course of the game. That means that I have had opportunities to alter their team. You probably don't understand what I'm talking about, but basically, if you caught the shadow Pokemon they had in their initial battles, they will have replaced them with other Pokemon. For instance, I didn't catch Mirabee's Shadow Sudowoodo, so in this final battle against him, he will definitely use it. I did catch the Kim Shadow Entei, meaning that he would have substituted it with a Houndoom. It's fun how that works. Anyway, I take out Venus and her Suicune, as well as Ayn and his Raikou for a second time, collect their ID cards, and activate the door.
Damn, he must think shit sweet right here. That's my hood, shorty. You bugging. You must not know that I'm thugging.
Upon entering the tower, Egon, Ruby's grandfather, sends me an email, but I guess he didn't realize there's a word limit, so I have no clue what he's trying to say. Ned also sends me an email about the list of shadow Pokemon. I try to use the elevator and find out the guy manning the elevator is Silva. He finally learned how to sneak into a place without getting caught. Good for him. I head up and see Nascor, the guy I met in Fennec City and the assumed leader of Team Cypher. He is trying his best to be nonchalant and cool. I'm not buying it though. He heads off, and as I try to chase after him, I'm stopped by the Team Snag'em boss Gonza, aka my ex-boss. I found out that Team Snag'em has been working under Team Cypher this whole time. Team Snag'em would use the Snag Machine to steal strong Pokemon from trainers and deliver them to Team Cypher, where they would turn these Pokemon into shadow Pokemon. Gonza reveals that Nascor is waiting for me, but first he wants to take me on to get revenge, as I might have stolen his Snag Machine and blew up his base. Just might though. I battle him and manage to take him and his Shadow Skarmory down. Now, only Nascor left. Nascor decides to make a show out of me by making me fight 4 trainers in a row to entertain the fans. First off, how did Cypher manage to get so many people in the stadium? There is literally 2 elevators that have a capacity of 1 person each. I beat his trainers as he finally challenges me himself. This shot of Nascor looks extremely menacing. It seems they really dove deep into creating wacky villains that are either too bubbly, too buff, too cool, or just plain creepy. You'll see what I mean soon. Nascor was definitely tough to beat, but eventually I overpowered the Shadow Metagross and beat Pokemon Colosseum. Wait, what? Who is he apologizing to? Mayor S. Kate? I haven't seen him since the start of the game. I thought he was just a defenseless mayor. Well, it turns out his actual identity is Evis, and he looks creepy. I can't really put my finger on why this design pisses me off, just know that it does. I have a battle for the ages against Evis, eventually reaching its final stages where Umbreon and Quagsire were against his lone Shadow Tyranitar. Quagsire goes for an Earthquake, taking down both my own Umbreon and his Tyranitar, which means Team Cypher is officially taken down. Evis gets arrested, my allies throughout the journey show up as support, and even Ho-Oh showed up to show its support, as it probably sensed the legendary beast becoming corrupted. That is it for Pokemon Colosseum. If you enjoyed that, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would really mean a lot, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.